By 1850, more than half of Britain's people lived not on farms or in villages, but inside industrial towns and cities where the sun rarely pierced the smoke. In Manchester alone, more than 300 factories roared day and night, devouring coal and cotton and human breath. The sound never truly stopped. Even at midnight, the city hummed like a single sleepless engine. They say that on some streets, you could not hang laundry to dry without it turning black by morning. That in the crowded slums of Ancoats, a single room often held 6 families, the air thick with damp and smoke. In those same districts, inspectors found children as young as 8 bent-over machines, working 12-hour shifts. Their small hands could dart where adults could not. It was said to be efficient. The industrial age was a miracle, they said. The crown of the empire. Railways stitched the nation together. Gaslight tamed the dark, and the power of steam promised to lift mankind itself. But the miracle came at a cost that few recorded. Letters from the time speak of the constant ringing in the ears, of soot that stuck beneath fingernails no matter how hard you scrubbed. If you enjoy these journeys, a like and a subscription mean more than you think. They directly keep this channel alive. And I'd love to hear from you too. Where are you listening from? And what time is it right now? Now together we coal slip into the journey. And now the morning bell rings again. It begins low and distant, then swells into the sky like thunder. It's not music. It's an order. Every man, woman and child in the tenements knows its voice. The bell calls you from the cot before dawn, its echo already inside your bones. There's no need for clocks. The bell is the clock. You rise in the cold. The walls sweat with condensation. Outside, the fog is thick enough to taste. You pull on the same threadbare clothes as yesterday, coarse wool, stiff with soot, and step into the street. All around, doors open in unison. Boots scuff on cobblestones, coughs rattle through the mist, and pale faces drift forward like ghosts. The city smells of coal and oil and something sour underneath, a scent you no longer notice until it's gone. Gas lamps burn dimly through the haze, their light the colour of old brass. Someone beside you mutters a prayer, someone else spits into the gutter. The bell rings again, sharper now, slicing through the fog. You follow the current of bodies toward the factory gates. The building looms ahead, red brick streaked with soot, its chimneys coughing flame. Through its windows you can already see the glow of gaslight, the shimmer of heat behind glass. The factory is alive long before the sun is. Inside, the noise swallows everything. Hundreds of looms shudder and crash in rhythm, their belts snapping through the air, their wheels spinning so fast they blur. It's said that the decibel level inside a Manchester mill could reach that of a modern jet engine, though no one had that word yet. Men and women shout without hearing each other. Foremen's voices vanish in the metallic roar. You learn to read lips, gestures, fear. A thread snaps. A shuttle jams. Someone rushes to fix it. Fingers darting between the moving gears. A careless moment could mean a lifetime of scars. The overseer watches with the patience of a hawk, stopwatch in hand, eyes on the clock, never the people. Historians will later describe this as the birth of modern time discipline, when hours themselves became commodities. The bell told you when to wake, when to eat, when to sleep. You belonged to it. The machines never tired, and so neither could you. Your body adjusts to the rhythm. The hiss of steam, the slap of belts, the smell of oil, it all becomes part of your breathing. The windows drip with condensation. Cotton dust floats in the air like snow, but when you inhale it, your lungs burn. They call it mill fever. The doctor recommends fresh air, but there is none. By midday, your shirt clings to your back. Sweat mixes with soot, turning your skin grey. You think of the river outside, once clear, now black as tar. Its surface filmed with dye from the mills. People still draw water from it. You remember the taste, metallic, bitter, alive. And yet, for all the misery, there sits beauty too. When the furnace doors open, A flash of gold spills across the floor, light scattering on the spinning metal. On faces caught between exhaustion and pride, for a heartbeat it looks holy, like a cathedral built from fire and smoke. You feel it then, the strange wonder of it all, that human hands could make something so vast, so powerful, but the wonder fades quickly. The bell rings again, and the spell breaks. The overseer's boots echo on the iron floor. Work resumes. A woman beside you ties a new bobbin, fingers moving faster than thought. Someone laughs softly, just enough to remind themselves they're still alive. You think of the city beyond these walls, the clean streets of the merchants' quarter, where lamps burn white instead of yellow, and carriages roll past windows bright with chandeliers. They call this same world modern, but it doesn't feel like yours. The two exist side by side, divided by soot and silence. And still, you keep working, because stopping would mean hunger, eviction, or worse, the workhouse, where families are split and names forgotten. No one wants to go there, so you bow your head and keep moving, matching your breath to the rhythm of progress. The sound of the bell fades. The fog grows softer. Somewhere beyond the hum of machines, you can almost hear the quiet, the kind the workers never knew, but you do now. Let your breath slow and drift with them through the smoke and the dawn. You hear them before you see them. The children, their thin voices blend with the drone of machines. Laughter that sounds more like coughing, words lost to the roar of iron. They move through the mill's shadowed corridors before dawn, barefoot or in shoes with the soles long gone. Their footsteps echo in the wet brick hallways, quick and light, like the patter of rain. There are dozens of them here. Some say hundreds, the youngest barely tall enough to reach the spindles. The law says they must be over 9, but no one checks too closely. A baptism record can be made older with a smudge of ink. Necessary labour, the mill owners call it. Training for discipline. The words sound clean enough on paper, but here, in the smell of oil and heat, those words turn to sweat. They begin their shifts when the whistle blows, just as you do. Some work as scavengers, crawling under the looms to collect fallen threads and lint while the machines are still running. One misstep, one untied bootlace, and the machinery will take what it wants. Others are piecers, rejoining threads when they break, nimble fingers darting into the blur of metal. You can hardly watch them without your stomach tightening. A small boy named Arthur works beside you. He looks 8, though he swears he's 10. His hair is the colour of ash. His cheeks always grey with dust. He speaks little. He doesn't need to. The rhythm of the machines leaves no space for talk. But sometimes, during the rare pauses, you see him grin at something small. A thread catching light, a whistle's echo bouncing off the rafters, the way steam curls like ghosts above the boilers. It's strange how quickly innocence adapts. The children learn to move like shadows, to make themselves small, to listen for the change in pitch that warns of a jammed loom. They become experts in survival before they learn to write their names. And when the overseer walks by, stopwatch gleaming, boots polished, they work faster, hands blurring, eyes lowered. The children know what a good worker looks like. Sometimes, when the air grows too hot, you see one of them stumble, clutching a spinning frame for balance. The foreman doesn't look up. Efficiency has no sympathy. A few drops of water from the communal bucket, a slap on the shoulder, and back to the rhythm. You want to help, but what would that do? The machines don't pause for kindness. Letters from the time mention how mill children slept in corners, wrapped in sacks, rather than walk home through the fog. Others slept in shifts, one waking another to take their place in a shared bed. A city survey from 1842 described a constant haze of dust so thick that one cannot see the far end of the room. It wasn't exaggeration. Even now the air tastes of cotton and rust, heavy as breath itself. You pause for a moment at the window. Outside, the fog swirls over the river. The Irwell, choked with dyes and factory runoff. No birds, no ripples, just a mirror of smoke. You think of the countryside you once knew, or maybe only imagined, with open air and grass that didn't crunch beneath soot. It feels like another lifetime. Arthur tugs your sleeve. He's pointing to something near the far loom. A tiny bird, a sparrow, somehow trapped inside. It flutters near the ceiling, confused by the gaslight. For a moment, every head turns upward, faces tilted toward that fragile thing that forgot where it was. The noise drowns everything else. The bird slams against the window pane once, twice, then finds the open vent and is gone. The foreman shouts, furious at the distraction. But for a heartbeat, you saw something that wasn't grey. At noon, you share the lunch break. A full 30 minutes. Bread gone stale, a sliver of cheese, maybe a boiled potato if you're lucky. The children sit together in small clusters, legs dangling from wooden crates. Their laughter is soft and fleeting, disappearing the moment the bell calls again. You catch Arthur staring at your tin cup of tea. Black, bitter, lukewarm. Without thinking, you offer it to him. He hesitates, then takes a sip, face twisting at the taste. But he grins anyway. You smile back, knowing that this tiny gesture will have to last him the day. That night, when you finally leave the mill, the fog presses low and yellow over the city. Street lamps glow faintly like dying embers. The factory whistle echoes behind you, and for a moment you imagine the children still inside, sweeping floors, tying threads, doing the work the empire rests on. You remember what the newspapers say, the pride of British industry. You wonder if pride always sounds like machinery. Historians will later argue whether these children were victims or pioneers. Some will claim their labour was necessary for progress, that the world's first mass-produced cloth, its engines, its prosperity, depended on their small endurance. Others will call it cruelty, plain and simple. But none of them were here. None of them inhaled this air. The truth is quieter, harder to define. It lives in moments, a shared crust of bread, a whisper between machines, a tired boy laughing at the sight of a bird. It lives in the silence between bells, when the city forgets to breathe. As you walk home, your boots heavy with grime, you pass the factory gates again. Inside you can still hear the hum, distant now but constant, like the heartbeat of something too big to stop. You wonder if Arthur hears it in his sleep. As you do, maybe it follows everyone who's ever worked here, a ghost of sound that never lets go. You turn down a narrow alley lined with wash lines and broken lamps. Above you, the smoke hides the stars. You can't remember the last time you saw one. Someone once said that in London, the sky glows red at night, not with sunset, but with the light of thousands of chimneys burning at once. Manchester isn't far behind. Your lungs ache. You pull your scarf higher, as if that could keep the soot out. The bell rings again. The signal for the evening shift. Even now, others are waking, dressing, walking toward the gates you just left. The factory never sleeps. It only changes faces. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It helps keep these long journeys alive. Now rest. The echoes of the looms fade. The smell of oil drifts away. You picture that small bird again, finding its way through the vent into the grey sky. The city softens, the river quiets, and the hum becomes a lullaby beneath your breath. You are still inside the story. Soot on your hands, warmth in your chest, smoke in your lungs, but the noise grows distant now, softer with every heartbeat. Progress, they say, is a gift. The newspapers call it the dawn of a new era, an age when every home will glow with gaslight, when iron roads will carry bread to every table, when the hum of machines will drown out hunger itself. The Manchester Guardian prints proud columns about rising production, exports and innovation. The working man has never had it better. One article insists, you try to imagine the writer's hands, soft, ink-stained, never raw from cotton oil. The words feel distant, like another world's weather report. Here, in the belly of the factory, progress doesn't look like triumph. It looks like exhaustion. It smells like sweat and coal and iron dust that sticks to your tongue. It beats like the thump of pistons and the slap of wet cloth. Progress is noise that never ends. You arrive before dawn again, breath steaming in the cold. The fog is thicker than yesterday, heavier, smelling faintly of burnt sugar from the dye works downriver. They say the sky over Manchester shines orange at night, the sunset that never goes out. Some call it beautiful, others call it warning. You've stopped calling it anything at all. Inside, everything is movement. Wheels, belts, levers, lungs. You take your place among the looms. The floor trembles beneath your boots. A supervisor stalks the aisles, his stopwatch gleaming like a medal. His eyes never meet yours. They track the machines. It's hard to tell one day from the next. The air tastes of iron. The walls sweat steam. You hear the same coughs, the same hiss, the same bell that marks each hour as though measuring the distance between life and weariness. When you close your eyes, the rhythm continues, phantom sounds pulsing behind your eyelids. You wonder if silence has a shape. The wages were supposed to rise, but they don't. The landlord increased rent again. Bread costs more this week. Soap too. Everything does except labour. They say the mills must stay competitive with India's cotton and America's new machines. It's progress, a word that never seems to apply to you. During the meal break, you lean against the brick wall, fingers still trembling from the vibration. Across the yard, a poster flaps in the wind. Great Industrial Exhibition, London, 1851. You've seen the sketches, the Crystal Palace, all glass and iron, a building so vast it could swallow a cathedral. The Queen herself walked its halls, they say, smiling among machines brighter than stars. For the first time in history, England displayed her genius to the world. The looms, the engines, the spinning frames that changed everything. Changed everything. Yes, but for whom? The mill owner's carriage rolls past the yard gate. Its polished black, wheels trimmed in silver. Inside, through a quick reflection of light, you glimpse him. Gloved hands, silk collar, the faint glimmer of a gold watch chain. He's not cruel, not exactly, just absent. The factory runs too smoothly to require his gaze. He doesn't need to see the faces inside. Arthur is sweeping again, small and quick. His bare feet leave ghost prints in the oil on the floor. You watch him, and something in your chest twists, admiration or anger. It's hard to tell. A generation raised by machinery, breathing soot before sunlight, growing into something quieter than childhood should ever be. Someone once told you that progress is like a tide. It can't be stopped. It washes away what came before, and leaves behind something new, something cleaner. But this tide doesn't smell like salt water. It smells like iron and smoke. In the evenings, you walk home through the narrow lanes of Angel Meadow, where the smoke gathers so thick it hides the stars. The streets are alive. Vendors calling, factory girls laughing through chapped lips, babies crying from the windows of cellar rooms. Somewhere, a fiddler plays a tune so faint it sounds like memory itself. You pass a man selling roasted chestnuts. He looks older than time. His hands are the same colour as yours. They call this the city of industry. And in some ways it is miraculous. There are gas lamps now, where once there was darkness. Trains thunder through tunnels beneath the hills. Letters travel faster than horses ever could. The world has become smaller, faster, louder. You think of the engineers who built it all. Brunel, Stevens, names spoken with reverence. But none of them hear the factory bells. None of them breathe this air. You reach your room near the canal. It's barely a room at all. One bed, a cracked window, the smell of damp brick. You light the stub of a candle. The flame bends from the draught, trembling like it knows what you feel. The noise from the mill still hums in your bones. You could almost mistake it for your own pulse. You remember something your mother used to say. Work hard and you still have a better life than I did. It sounded simple then, but here, work is the whole life. There's no better, only more hours. You think of her now, long gone, buried in a churchyard that no one can afford to visit. Maybe that's progress too, learning not to look back. A soft knock at the door. It's your neighbour, Mrs. Farlan, a widow with 2 sons in the mines. She brings you a bowl of broth, thin but hot. She says she made too much, though you both know that's not true. You thank her, and she smiles. Teeth missing, but eyes kind. In this place, kindness is rebellion. She tells you the talk in the streets. A strike brewing, somewhere in Salford. The men want shorter hours, safer work, more pay. The owners call it ungrateful. The newspapers call it seditious nonsense. But you can feel it spreading, like warmth under cold skin. Not yet hope, but the shape of it. Later that night, lying in the dark, you listen to the city breathe. Somewhere far off, a train screams. Somewhere closer, a woman sings to her child. The sound drifts through the window, blending with the distant pulse of the mill. You close your eyes. Even in rest, you can feel the motion, the endless churn of progress grinding forward, indifferent and unstoppable. Historians will later argue about this age, whether it saved the world or scarred it. Some will call it victory, others tragedy, but for you, it is simply the sound of survival. Every invention, every marvel, every gleaming city of tomorrow built from hours like yours. The next morning, the bell will ring again. It always does. But tonight, for once, you lie still. The machines sleep in your imagination, their pistons slowing, their breath turning to mist. You think of the Crystal Palace, of its glass and iron shining like a dream. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It helps keep these long journeys alive. Now breathe slower. The noise fades. The air cools. The glow of the candle dims until it's only warmth in the dark. You are safe for a while, still inside that world of smoke and steam, but drifting above it, as if watching from the quiet beyond the clouds. The bell is far away now. The city exhales. The bell comes earlier today. You can tell by the colour of the light, that thin grey before dawn, when the streets look neither alive nor dead. The sound rolls through the fog like thunder trapped in a tunnel. You rise before your mind does, muscles remembering what the body must do. The air smells of rain and coal smoke, mixed until they're the same thing. Somewhere a church clock answers the factory whistle, both commanding, both holy in their own way. You walk the same street you've walked every day for years. Boots slapping through puddles, lamps burning low and tired. Ahead, the chimneys stretch like towers of some iron kingdom. It's said that Manchester has more chimneys than trees now, and if that's not true, it feels like it should be. You can't recall the last time you saw green that wasn't mould. At the gates, the overseer is already waiting. Mr. Dalton, tall, dry as wire, eyes the colour of cold metal. His coat is pressed, his hair oiled back. He carries a notebook in one hand, a small brass stopwatch in the other. The workers call him the Tick, though never to his face. You've seen him fire a man before breakfast. He doesn't shout, he doesn't need to. His silence is a weight. He stands by the entrance as you all file in, marking latecomers with a flick of the pen. Each mark means a penny docked, sometimes more. The gate clangs shut behind you, a sound like a cell door. Inside, the factory is awake. The boilers hiss, the belts shudder to life. The floor trembles. The first burst of steam always smells faintly sweet, then bitter. You take your place by the loom. Around you, faces fade into a blur of movement. Grey skin, red eyes, hair powdered with lint. Dalton walks the aisles like a preacher through pews, stopwatch swinging gently from his thumb. He times each process. How long to load a spool, to clear a jam, to tie a knot. His shoes barely make a sound. Only the faint click of the watch. Tick, tick, tick. It's hypnotic. like the heartbeat of the factory itself. The bell rings for the start of the shift. Your hands move without thought. You reach, pull, tie, repeat. The same movements thousands of times a day. The machine hums, alive and endless. When it jams, you feel panic spike like heat under your skin. The overseer's eyes are always there, catching the smallest hesitation. You've learned to sense his presence before seeing him. The shift in the air, the sudden quiet around your station. He'll stand behind you for long minutes, watching, saying nothing, then a note in the book. You never know what it means until payday. Rumours say Dalton used to be a worker himself, years ago, before his back stiffened and his voice learned command. Some say he lost a finger to a loom and was promoted to supervisor rather than dismissed. Others say he married the owner's cousin. No one knows for certain. Records suggest that many overseers came from the same ranks they ruled. Power reshapes men differently. One becomes cruel, another careful, another hollow. You think about that sometimes, as you watch him watching you. What makes a man trade sweat for fear? Perhaps it's the same thing that keeps you here, survival. By mid-morning, the air is thick enough to chew, cotton fibers float in the light like snow, beautiful until you remember what they do to lungs. The doctor calls it spinner's phorethesis. You've seen men cough blood into their sleeves and keep working. There's nowhere else to go. Dalton stops beside the youngest worker, a girl barely 15, face pale under soot. Her fingers tremble as she ties the threads. The machine jerks once, spits loose fabric. He leans in, voice low but sharp. You can't hear the words, only the tone, the kind that makes your stomach clench though it's not aimed at you. She nods, lips pressed thin, and starts again faster now. You look away, but the sound of her breath catches in your chest. It's the rhythm of fear, the true motor of the industrial age. There are small rebellions, of course. A spoon of sugar slipped into a co-worker's tea, a joke carved into the wood of the table. Sometimes, when the overseer turns, someone mimics his stiff walk, and the others stifle laughter behind their hands. These moments are dangerous but necessary. They remind you that you're still human, not a moving part. During the meal break, Dalton patrols. Even then, he doesn't eat with you. He walks the yard, inspecting machinery, counting tools, making notes in his book. The factory never truly stops. Steam still seeps from the vents, hot against the cold air. You chew a crust of bread, watching him pass, and wonder what he writes about. Does he note the cracks in the wall, the smell of damp stone, or only how many minutes the loom stood silent? When he disappears inside, someone mutters. He times his own heartbeat. A ripple of laughter breaks out. Quick, nervous, gone in seconds. But it's something. Afternoon drags heavy as coal dust. The windows glow with a strange copper light, the kind that makes you forget what season it is. Hours fold into each other. The bell rings for the end of shift, though you barely hear it. The sound of release is strange after so much command. Outside, the fog is darker than morning, tinted red by furnace glow. You walk home slower, shoulders stiff, fingers raw. The overseer's gaze still lingers, ghost-like. You wonder if he feels the same when he lies in bed, eyes open, listening for the hiss of steam even in silence. Sometimes you think you understand him. To stand apart from the suffering, to measure it instead of living it. Perhaps that's the only way to stay sane in a place like this. Control becomes comfort. You imagine him at his desk by lamplight, copying his notes into neat columns. Each number, each line, a wall against the chaos of the factory floor. Maybe he needs the order as much as you do. Years from now, historians will find ledgers like his, clean, precise, proud. They'll quote them as evidence of efficiency, discipline, productivity. The numbers will look impressive on the page. They won't show the noise or the smell or the way your heart jumps at the sound of that ticking watch. Later, in the narrow quiet of your room, you still hear it, tick, tick, tick. It hides in the pipes, in the rhythm of your pulse, in the drip of rain outside the window. You imagine Dalton somewhere across the city, sleeping with the same sound in his ears, both of you caught in the same clock. You blow out the candle, and for a moment the silence feels heavy enough to hold. You breathe in slow, the air tasting faintly of metal. The world outside is still turning, gears grinding, bells ringing, clocks marking each invisible second. The overseer's eye may fade when the lights go out, but the rhythm he enforces keeps moving, inside every hand, every breath, every dream. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It helps keep these long journeys alive. Now, let the ticking fade. Let the fog close in and the air grow soft again. The sound of the factory becomes a whisper. The watch a heartbeat slowing to rest. You're still inside that world of iron and time, but sleep presses closer, gentle and certain, like the first quiet after the bell. If you enjoy these journeys, a like and a subscription mean more than you think. They directly keep this channel alive, and I'd love to hear from you too. Where are you listening from, and what time is it right now? Evening comes without stars. The light doesn't fade so much as drown. Swallowed by the smoke that sits over Manchester like a second sky, the day's labour ends, but the city doesn't rest. It smoulders. Chimneys exhale in slow, rhythmic sighs, their breath hanging low across the rooftops. You leave the mill with your ears ringing, skin tacky with oil, and lungs that ache in the cold air. The bell behind you fades into distance, but another takes its place, a deeper hum from the ironworks by the canal, where molten metal glows through open doors like fire glimpsed through ribs. The River Irwell runs just beyond, black and sluggish, carrying with it the waste of 10,000 engines. Once, they say, it was clear enough to drink. Old men in the tavern talk of when trout swam here, when children splashed along its banks. That was before the mills, before the chimneys, before industry taught the river a new colour. Now at dusk it looks alive, thick and slow, swirling with grease and chemical foam. The water's surface catches the light of the furnaces, turning gold, then green, then red, depending on what dye the factories spill that day. You stop on the bridge. The air tastes of sulphur and damp brick. Steam drifts across the cobblestones in slow curls. The sound of hammers from the foundry mixes with the hiss of water against iron. Somewhere nearby, a cart tips its load. A splash, then silence. You don't look too long. No one does. It's said that in 1852, the Irwell was so polluted that gas bubbles would form beneath its surface, bursting into flame when touched by a candle. The newspapers reported it once, briefly, before moving on to brighter stories about the empire's wealth. But you can see it tonight. Small flickers dancing where the runoff meets the current, ghostly lights that burn for a moment, then vanish into smoke. Across the river stands the merchant's quarter, tall warehouses with windows like mirrors, their bricks scrubbed clean, their ledgers fat with numbers. Here the city divides itself neatly. One side burns, the other profits. The same bell calls both to rise, but its echo carries different meaning depending on where it lands. A barge glides by, its silhouette low and dark. Men on board shout to one another through the mist. Coal, iron, cotton, always moving, never resting, the city's bloodstream. You watch them disappear beneath a stone arch marked with soot, heading towards Salford, where more factories wait. Behind you, footsteps splash in puddles. A woman passes, shawl drawn tight around her shoulders, face hidden. Her basket smells faintly of onions and bread, the scent carried by the wind like memory. Somewhere in the alleys beyond, a baby cries, a man sings off-key, a door slams. Life continues, threadbare and stubborn. You walk along the riverbank toward your lodging. The houses lean close, walls damp with age. Laundry hangs motionless on ropes, too soaked with soot to dry. In one window, a small boy sits beside a candle, tracing circles in the grime on the glass. His reflection blurs with the glow outside, two ghosts staring at each other through time. The smell of the tanneries grows stronger. It's a sour mix, animal hides, lime, and smoke. You pull your scarf higher, but it doesn't help. It clings to everything. Your hair, your clothes, your dreams. Some nights you wake certain you're still in the mill. The air so heavy it presses against your chest even in sleep. At the corner of the street stands a pub, the Iron Horse. Its windows are steamed over, the air inside thick with heat and ale and human noise. You step in, drawn by the faint promise of warmth. The room is packed, voices layered one atop another until it becomes a kind of music. Men hunch over wooden tables, shirts open, faces streaked with soot. The smell of tobacco fills the gaps between words. Someone laughs too loud. Someone else curses the price of bread. A fiddler plays in the corner, boughs sliding slow over strings. You take a seat near the door. A mug of weak beer costs a penny. A luxury, but tonight you allow it. The first swallow burns pleasantly. You can feel it warm your throat, then vanish into the hollow place where hunger usually lives. A man beside you leans close. His breath smells of smoke and hope. They say a new machine's coming, he mutters. One man will do the work of 5. He smiles like that's good news, though his eyes don't match. Progress again, the word that glitters for some and bruises others. You listen to the talk, about wages, strikes, accidents, children too tired to stand. No one blames the machines. Not really. They blame the men who own them. Still, there's a kind of awe in every voice. These engines are the gods of the age, and you serve them willingly, because to deny them is to starve. Outside, the fog presses against the windows. Someone opens the door, and cold air floods in, carrying the smell of the river. You drain your mug, set it down, and step back into the night. The cobblestones glisten with rain and oil, reflecting the lamplight like molten metal. The bridge again. You pause at its centre. Beneath you, the Irwell moves in slow agony, the water thick as tar, rippling with reflected flame. The factories beyond the banks breathe fire into the sky, their smoke trailing like banners of conquest. It's beautiful, in a terrible way, the kind of beauty that asks for silence instead of praise. Historians will later call this the price of progress. They'll note the inventions, the railways, the steel, the cotton, the empire's reach across oceans, but the river will not appear in those ledgers, nor the air that tasted like iron, nor the hands that turned grey before old age. You rest your palms on the cold stone railing. The wind off the water stings your skin. Somewhere below, a spark flares, blue and brief, where gas meets air, a reminder that even filth can burn. You close your eyes and breathe, slow and steady. The city hums around you like a great sleeping creature, smoke rising from its back. For a moment you imagine it gone, the chimneys silent, the river clear, the stars returning to their rightful places. You can almost see it, the reflection of moonlight instead of flame, the sound of water instead of steam. Then the wind shifts, and the real world returns, thick with the smell of progress. You turn for home. The fog swallows your footsteps. Behind you the river keeps flowing, patient and poisoned, carrying away the ash of a century that believes it will live forever. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It helps keep these long journeys alive. Now let the river's hum soften. The smoke thins in your imagination. The sound of water slows, quiet as breath. Somewhere far above the soot, stars still wait, dim but constant. Let them guide you toward rest, away from the noise and the glow. Sunday arrives like a breath you've held all week. No whistle, no ticking watch. Only a pale hush that slides along the rooftops and settles in the alleys like frost. The fog is still here, but gentler. It doesn't bite so hard when you step outside. Even the smoke seems to hang with softer edges, as if the city itself is tired and willing to rest. Your boots move slower on purpose. You feel the weight of your own body again. not the machine's rhythm lodged in your muscles. Doors open up and down the lane, not in a rush, but in a kind of sleepy procession. Women shaking crumbs from cloths, men stretching shoulders that groan like old hinges. Children wander without being herded, faces bare, hair uncombed, voices sweet and unhurried. You carry a loaf, yesterday's dense and grey at the edges, wrapped in a faded cloth. On Sundays, bread stretches further. You cut thinner, you chew longer. Across the street, Mrs. Fallon tops a pot with a rickety lid. A scent of onion and bone rises thin and promising. Somewhere, bacon crackles, not yours, someone luckier, and a curl of joy travels the street like rumour. The church bell takes its time. It tolls with a rounder voice than the factory bell, less command than invitation. You join the flow towards St. Michael's Sam, hands tucked into sleeves, breath blooming white. Inside, the nave smells of damp stone and tallow. Candles gutter in little halos, dripping wax like slow tears down tin holders. The pews creak under wool coats and wet shawls. Every movement is a soft chorus of wood and whisper. You sit, hat in your lap, a draught snakes along the floor, finds your ankles, keeps you awake. The vicar speaks of charity, of patience, of how toil refines the soul like fire refines metal. You look at your hands, black under the nails, a thread cut half-healed on your thumb, and wonder how much refining a soul can take. A girl 2 rows ahead stifles a cough. It starts small and flares hot, the kind that jolts a body. Her mother rubs her back in small circles. The sound echoes in your chest. Around you, heads bow, some in prayer, some in exhaustion. It's said that factory districts send more people to pews in winter. Warmth is warmth, even holy warmth. Records suggest working-class church attendance rose and fell with the price of coal. Some letters hint that many came for soup more than sermons. You don't judge. You've done the same. A hymn swells. The organ wheezes. Brave but tired, you sing in the lowest voice you have, the one that doesn't rattle your lungs. Electric light hasn't claimed this place yet. Only gas and flame, so the shadows hold to the rafters like roosting birds. For a few minutes the city beyond the walls disappears. No belts, no pistons, no overseer's eye, only breath and voices, and the soft scrape of feet against stone. After the final Amen, the aisle fills with faces turned human again. In the porch, a woman offers a basket of tracts and a small crate of oranges gathered for the poor. You haven't held an orange in years. The peel feels like summer under your fingers, bitter and bright. You share segments with 2 children beside the door. Juice sparks on your tongue, startling as laughter. Outside, Sunday spills across the cobbles. Men lean in doorways with hands in pockets, talking softly. A pair of mill girls share a ribbon and pin it between them for an hour, giggling each time it slips. A boy chases a hoop that clacks over the stones, all elbows and joy. The day makes room for these things, small proofs that life still happens between shifts. You carry your thin loaf to a corner where the sun manages to break through, a pale square on the wall. You sit in it like a cat. The bread cuts rough, the knife slipping in your stiff fingers. You give away the first piece without thinking. The old man who takes it nods like you've returned him an old memory. You keep the heel for later. On Sundays you plan for Monday. You think about laws meant to protect you. The Factory Acts, the 10 Hours Act of 1847, words that look handsome in pamphlets. Sundays are their promise made visible, a day wrestled back from the machine. But even this is uneven. Records suggest most cotton mills stop. Letters hint the ironworks across the canal keep their fires banked and ready. Men slipping in for necessary maintenance that feels like any other shift with the name scrubbed clean. The city rests in patches like a quilt with scorch marks. At midday, a kettle laughs on Mrs. Fallon's grate. You bring the loaf. She brings the broth between you. It becomes a meal that smells better than it tastes. The bowl warms your hands long after it empties. She talks about her boys down the mines, how the lamplight makes their eyes look older. You nod, and she nods, and that's the whole conversation you both needed. Later, you walk by the canal where narrowboats nap in a row, ropes creaking against iron rings. A rag and bone man sorts his haul, humming a tune that sounds like a cartwheel. A woman mends a cuff with thread salvaged from factory sweepings, her needle tapping time against her thumbnail. Everywhere you look, Sunday is gentle industry. Fixing, mending, saving. Making do is its own kind of craft. You pass a brick arch where a small chalk circle marks a ragged school. Inside, a volunteer traces letters on a slate, while 3 children follow with tongues peeking from the sides of their mouths. Slow, careful. The boy Arthur sits cross-legged at the edge, watching. He doesn't join, he watches. When the lesson ends, you catch his eye and tip your head toward the door. He slips out with you, light as a sparrow. You break the heel of bread in half. He takes it like a secret and eats fast, then slower, then with his eyes closed, as if taste on a Sunday is something you can hear. He tells you in a handful of words that the foreman's nephew will start at the loom tomorrow. Arthur will sweep under his station instead. You hear what he doesn't say. You tell him there'll be stew by evening if he's around. He doesn't promise to come. You both know promises are luxury, but he smiles. It lands where hope usually misses. Afternoon thins into a quieter light. A neighbour strings laundry between 2 cracked walls, and for once the sheets do lift, not with wind, but with the rumour of it, a waver that looks almost like clean. The bells strike again, softer, then retreat. You feel the city inhale and hold it, as if not wanting to exhale Monday too soon. At dusk you sit on the stoop with a mug of tea, the colour of rust, strong, bitter, perfect. Steam kisses your face. Somewhere a fiddle finds a tune that isn't from the mill, a reel that makes feet remember how to be light. 2 girls try the steps in clumsy boots and end up laughing against each other, hands over mouths, shoulders shaking. You clap once, quietly. They grin as if you paid them a coin. Evening lays its cool hand on your shoulders. The chimneys stand against a sky that almost shows 1 star where smoke thins. You wait for it to vanish, but it holds a pinprick, a permission. You let it stay. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It helps keep these long journeys alive. Now gather the softness of the day and fold it small, like a handkerchief pressed into a pocket for luck. Let the church bell fade into your breath. Let the taste of orange linger longer than it should. In this pause between weeks, the world grows quiet enough to hear your own heart, steady and unhurried. Keep that rhythm as the light lowers and the rooms go dim, and follow it into rest. You climb toward clearer air. Streets narrow, then widen, then tilt away from the river's stink as you walk up to the ridge. People call Silk Hill, not for silk, but for those who buy it. Below, the mills breathe smoke into the morning. Above, the houses sit back from the road as if they don't wish to be disturbed. The cobbles are cleaner here. Boots don't slip. Even the fog seems to hesitate. You stir not invited, not really. But on Sundays and certain mornings, the big house at the corner takes in deliveries. Fresh coal, clean linen, meat under white cloth. And today you've agreed to carry a basket for Mrs. Fallon in exchange for a bowl of stew later. The basket is heavy with shirts someone else will wear once and never mend. You shoulder it and keep climbing. Gates appear, then gardens. Laurel hedges trimmed square as account books. A gravel drive crunches under a carriage wheel and answers with a sound too crisp for the lower streets. The house itself is red brick with stone corners like folded linen. Windows blink pale and tall. 2 chimneys, 2 verandas, 2 worlds. The brass knocker is cool against your knuckles. A maid opens, cap straight, eyes quick, the smell of beeswax rolling out from the hall like sunshine in chemical form. She takes the basket and points you to the mat, not unkindly, not kindly either. Behind her shoulder you glimpse a floor of black and white tile so polished it could be water. Your reflection is a smudge in it. Inside, the house speaks in a different register. No clang, no hiss, only the hush of carpets and the soft breath of gasoliers. A long case clock mouths the seconds instead of biting them, slow, contented, fat with time. Somewhere, a piano tries the same 3 measures again and again, as if practicing perfection. The air smells of furniture polish, orange peel, and a coal fire that burns without grit. You didn't know a coal fire could smell like comfort. The owner appears at the landing, coat cut clean, watch chain glinting like a small argument with the light. You recognize him from across the yard, the carriage, the hat, the way he never needs to hurry. Here he looks almost domestic. He thanks no one in particular, asks no names, moves as if the house itself makes way. The maid stiffens in a way your back recognizes. Breakfast arrives on a silver tray, eggs soft as whispers, bacon that crackles without smoke, bread so white it looks like winter. The butler lifts the domed cover and a cloud of warmth escapes, seasoned with nutmeg and class. You swallow nothing. Across the same hour down the hill, the mill whistle blasts, and somewhere 100 mouths chew yesterday's crust in time with machinery. 2 breakfasts, 1 clock. You're not meant to see any of this, but the door hasn't closed. A small dog prances in, nails clicking on wood, and noses your boot with the frankness allowed to animals and owners. You hold still. A girl of about 12, lace collar, hair like poured milk, follows, speaks to the dog in a voice that thinks the world listens. She glances at you, then at your hands. Something in her gaze tightens, not in disgust, in curiosity. She is shooed away gently with a smile that means someday these curiosities will become rules. The mistress descends the stairs with a rustle that sounds expensive even with your eyes shut. She holds a pamphlet wrapped with a ribbon. Relief Association for the Poor. She speaks to the owner about a meeting, about contributions, about blankets. Letters later might hint that the family endowed a hospital wing, though neighbours will argue whether the money cured illness or reputation. Records suggest both happened, as records often do. Leave the basket in the scullery if you please, the maid tells you. Your boots sink into carpet as you cross after her. The hallway smells briefly of lemon and metal, the kitchen beyond humming its own domestic industry. Copper pans hung like medals, a blue-glazed water filter, a range that eats coal without spitting it back. A boy polishes spoons with a cloth too clean to live long. He looks your age and nothing like you. On a bench sits another basket, this one bound for charity. Scraps of linen, a heel of yesterday's white bread, a tin of treacle. The maid gestures at it. Take that down to Angel Meadow on your way. She says it with brisk efficiency, as if benevolence were a chore to be completed before luncheon. You nod. Bread is bread. Treacle is sunlight in a tin. You wait near the door while the house continues its quiet parade. The piano climbs again, a determined scale. The clock sighs. The butler passes with empty cups that still smell of tea. You notice a painting, a ship big as a street, sails full, water cut smooth beneath its hull. The plaque reads Calcutta, carved in gold. You don't need a ledger to draw the line between that ship and the mill's roar. The cotton crossed oceans. The profit crosses streets. The owner speaks to the butler about the new self-acting mule installed last week. Marvellous, he says. 1 man for a whole bank. You feel the statement land somewhere behind your ribs. The butler murmurs approval. He is paid to. The numbers sound clever here. Down the hill, they sound like hunger. You step back into daylight with both baskets. One empty of privilege, one full of charity. The air is cooler on the ridge. The smog doesn't climb as readily as you did. You follow the drive to the gate, gravel giving way to cobble, cobble surrendering to the softened mud of lower streets. A carriage rattles past, hooves finding neat rhythm on stone, and its window holds a mirror for a second. Your face, your scarf, your breath, and behind you the mansion, already forgetting your shape. Halfway down, a boy runs at your side. Arthur, all elbows and grin, eyes on the smaller basket. Treacle? He asks without asking. You nod and pass it to him with a look that means share. He nods back with a look that means I will, if I can. The economy of trust moves faster than coin. At the corner, you meet Mrs. Fallon. Her hands smell of soap and broth. You place the linen receipt in her palm, and she places a ladle of stew in a chipped bowl you didn't notice her carrying. Exchange complete. Solidarity is the currency that spends in every direction. A woman nearby warms her fingers on the bowl's steam without asking. You tilt it her way before taking your first sip. The treacle goes farther than you expect. By the time you reach the alley near the ragged school, 3 spoons have found the tin and a smear of sugar marks 3 mouths like victory paint. A small argument breaks over whose turn is next. It ends with laughter when Arthur streaks a line on his own nose and crosses his eyes to see it. Where's septic come from? Someone asks. You tilt your head uphill. The group follows your gaze and goes quiet in a way that isn't worship. It is the silence of geometry, angles between wealth and want, between gates and doors, between clocks that tell different truths. You think of the mansion's clock, the way it breathed time instead of beating it. You imagine its minute hand sliding easier than yours, its hours fed by other people's seconds. No bell there, only chimes. Down here the whistle is the law and the prophecy. Rumour slips through the crowd about the owner's gift to the infirmary, 10 guineas. Some say 100, says a man who likes larger numbers. Others mutter about wages, about the new mule that will free men from drudgery by freeing them from work. Truth walks slower than rumour, but arrives eventually. You hold both and keep moving. As afternoon folds toward evening, the ridge swallows its light and sends the rest downhill. Smoke thickens. The mansion's windows ignite one by one small golden squares suspended in grey. From where you stand it looks like a ship floating on fog, the same kind you saw framed in gilt on the stair. The house and the painting rhyme with each other. Profit is a loop. You take the long way home to avoid the bottleneck at the mill gate. The treacle tin clinks in your pocket, empty now but bright, and you can't bring yourself to throw it away. It catches lamplight and turns it into a coin you can spend with your eyes. When Arthur asks to keep it, you say yes. He will turn it into a drum or a lantern or a universe. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It helps keep these long journeys alive. Now let the hill recede. Let the windows dim to distant stars, and the dog's light steps fade back into carpet and silence. The river's breath returns, the city's hum lowers, and your own feet find the slower rhythm that belongs only to you. The bell is still a rumour on the edge of the night, but here for a while you stand between chime and whistle, soot and polish, hunger and honey, watching both worlds blink like tired eyes. The whisper starts the way all dangerous things do, quietly between coughs, a name spoken low in the yard, a plan hinted at in the pub, a word that trembles on the tongue like prayer or crime strike. It moves faster than rumour, slower than courage. Every man who hears it feels the same pulse in his chest, something between hope and hunger. The week begins like all the others. The bell tears the morning open, and the fog folds around you as you walk. The cobblestones are slick, the air sour with smoke and rain. The factory looms ahead, a familiar silhouette against the grey. The Irwell still stinks, the chimneys still cough, and progress still hums in your bones like a fever that never breaks. But something feels different. Not louder, sharper, like a string wound too tight. Inside, the looms start their endless thunder. The overseer paces, stopwatch in hand, boots clicking on the oily floor. The heat swells by the minute. Sweat beads along your temples before the first hour ends. Every sound, every movement, every breath falls into the same machine rhythm. The same song, the same chain. Then, a whisper. They say Salford men walked out. It comes from the left, a spinner with his mouth half hidden by a handkerchief. His words barely make it past the noise, but you catch them. Walked out. You nod once. The whisper moves on, carried through the dust and clang, disappearing somewhere down the row. During the meal break, the rumour grows legs. The foreman's office door slams twice, once hard, once harder. A clerk hurries across the yard with a folded paper, face stiff. Two women at the water pump trade, looks but not words. Everyone feels it. The electricity before a storm. 15% pay cut. Someone mutters, voice flat. You've heard it before, whispers about coal prices, about shipping, about the markets in Liverpool. But this time the words stick. The arithmetic is cruel. Rent up, bread up, wages down. You stare at your lunch, half a potato, a crust of bread, and wonder how thin a life can stretch before it snaps. After the break, the machines start again, but slower, as if even they sense the air has changed. The overseer's eyes flick from one worker to the next. He knows too. You can almost feel his relief when the first whistle signals the end of shift, proof that today at least no one stopped. Not yet. That night, the pub is fuller than usual. Men stand shoulder to shoulder, breath thick with beer and argument. The talk is loud but uncertain. Some want to walk out tomorrow, others shake their heads, muttering about the workhouse, about children, about debts. You listen. The owners won't listen if we stay quiet, someone says. They'll listen even less if we don't show up. Another replies. A third laughs, not with humour, but disbelief. You think they self-feed your family when you so idle. The room hums like a hive on the edge of swarm. Arthur sits near the fire, feet swinging above the floor, half asleep. He shouldn't be here, but no one chases him out. The heat paints his face in copper light. You catch his gaze and feel the weight of the choice pressing closer, a choice that never feels like one. It rains through the night, hard rain, the kind that scrubs soot off the roofs but leaves it in the streets. By morning the world smells like wet iron and wood rot. The bell rings and you walk same as always. Your boots splash in puddles the colour of tea. At the gate, men hesitate. The overseer watches, lips thin, notebook ready. You glance left, then right. No one speaks. You think you see someone turn back toward the pub, but it's only a trick of the fog. The line keeps moving. You pass through. Inside, the looms roar to life again. The whistle screams and the air fills with steam. The rhythm returns, the familiar, endless rhythm, and the strike dissolves like breath on glass. No walkout, no banner, no stand, just the same old morning wearing a new name. Disappointment. By midday, the tension breaks in smaller ways. A spool thrown harder than needed. A snapped thread. A curse too loud. The overseer writes 3 names in his ledger. The machines don't care. They sing their metal hymn, indifferent. You lose count of the hours. After work, you walk home slower. The rain has stopped, but the streets are streaked black where soot has melted into mud. A boy sells cheap pamphlets at the corner. Workers of the Empire Unite. Printed in bold, the ink still wet. You buy one for a halfpenny, though you can't read every word. The paper feels thin, fragile. You fold it into your coat, like contraband. Mrs. Fallon's window glows as you pass. She waves you in for stew. And you accept. The broth is thinner tonight. The flavour mostly salt, but it fills the space where hunger usually lives. She tells you her nephew was arrested in Bolton for speaking. You don't ask what he said. Later, Arthur appears at the door, soaked from the rain, holding a matchbox wrapped in string. For luck, he says. Inside, 2 wooden matches and a stub of candle. He's smiling, proud of the gift. You want to refuse, but the way he holds it, as if it means light itself, makes you take it. Keep it, you tell him. You'll need it more. He shakes his head. You'll need it longer. He saps right. He always is. You fall asleep to the sound of rain starting again. Soft this time. The wind hums through the cracks in the wall, carrying with it the ghost of what could have been, chants that never left throats, steps that never left doorways. Somewhere the whistle blows again, a sound so normal it hurts. Historians will later call it a minor unrest. They'll count the days of lost labour. Only 2, maybe 3. They'll note the pamphlets, the speeches, the demands. But they won't feel this, the stillness that follows when courage drains away. They won't see the faces in the fog, the shoulders that slump before the fight begins. They'll say the industrial age was built on innovation, on steam, on steel, that it was built just as much on silence, the kind that fills a room when fear outweighs hunger, when hope costs more than bread. The next morning, the bell rings again. You wake, and for a moment you think you hear voices outside, the echo of that word again, strike. But it's only the river moving under the bridge, slow and constant, carrying the ashes of yesterday away. You light the stub of candle Arthur gave you. Its flame trembles, small but steady, and for the first time in days you allow yourself to stare at it instead of the smoke. Its light catches the lines on your hand, the soot under your nails, the faint trembling that never leaves. Maybe this is all rebellion is, to see the light and not look away. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It helps keep these long journeys alive. Now, let the rain hush the rest of the city. Let the candle burn lower. The machines are silent in your memory, the whistle a dream fading into mist. The river flows, the fog returns, and your breath finds its own rhythm again, slower, softer, unmeasured by clocks. The strike never came, but rest does. Time thickens the air, just as steam does. You don't notice it at first. A winter, a summer, another winter. And suddenly the boys who carried bobbins are men with moustaches and nervous jokes, and the girls who tied threads faster than thought. Now keep ledgers with neat pinched numbers. Your own hands, the ones that learn the machine's dance, begin to tremble even before the first bell. Not fear, not any more, just the long echo of repetition. Morning arrives with the same grey as always, but the street feels younger around you. Apprentices walk with the bounce of arrogance, boots too new for the stones, laughter that doesn't yet know what the bell can do. One of them calls you uncle, though you share no blood. You want to tell him to save his knees, to bend before the machine makes him, but he's already ahead, scarf bright as a dare against the soot. Inside, the factory has changed and hasn't sit. The looms still slam their iron hymn, but the new self-acting mules purr with a smoother cruelty. The belts are cleaner, the guards tighter. Someone says accidents are fewer. Someone else mutters they're only quieter. The overseer's watch ticks the same, but now he has spectacles that flash with gaslight. He's older too. The machine keeps youth, people don't. Your grip slips on a wheel you could turn blindfolded. Oil slicks your palm, the same smell you've worn into the weave of your coat, a scent you can find even in your dreams. You wipe your hand on a rag that once was a shirt and try again. The metal pushes back with an indifference you've always respected and always hated. You match it, breath by breath. By the 1870s, they say, the 10 Hours Act finally means what the pamphlets claimed, at least most days. The shift feels shorter on paper. Your bones disagree. The bell rings at the old times, the new times, all times, a season that never ends. And still, that small improvement is something. On Sundays your shoulders remember how not to ache. Once or twice you sleep past dawn and wake startled, sure you've committed a crime against the clock. At midday the yard smells of boiled tea and tallow. You sit on a crate and watch a lad show off a box of matches that light on any surface. See? Phosphorus, uncle. He sparks one on his sleeve and everyone hisses, half impressed, half afraid. He laughs and the match goes out with a breath like a kiss. You remember Arthur doing the same with a stub years ago, not for show but for warmth. You wonder where he is now. Records suggest boys like him grow into men whose lungs never quite catch up. Letters hint some found softer work by luck or marriage. Others simply stopped showing up, their names folded into silence. The lamps above your head flicker. Gas mantles hiss softly, a music of their own, and the light they pour is the colour of cream turned thin. But down the long room, something new buzzes, a hard white glare that hums as if arguing with the air. The owner has installed a dynamo just for the far bay. A trial, he said at the last inspection, voice carrying the smile of invention. By the 1880s, people will say, mills try electric light to stretch the day and sharpen the needle's eye. The first week, men complain of headaches, of shadows that cut like blades. The overseer writes this down as adjustment. You stand in the edge of that new brightness and feel older by 10 years. It erases the soft forgiveness gas once gave, shows every speck, every thread, every twitch. Your hands look like maps under it, rivers of scars, small countries of burn, a territory of use. The younger men joke about seeing the future. You step back into the warmer dim and pretend not to. Toward evening, the wind shifts, and the Irwell's breath crawls through the windows with the damp. You swear the river knows your name, that it has learned all your hours and pronounces them back to you in slow, patient syllables. In that whisper, you count faces that are gone, and faces that arrive to take their places. Like the looms swapping spindles, the same machine forever refilled. The foreman, a new one, not Dalton. Dalton retired to a small shop that sells clocks and silence, walks with a different gait, brisk and correct. He praises efficiency in a voice that makes the words sound like bread. He posts a notice near the gate about a sick benefit society, a penny a week against catastrophe. You sign your name slowly, each letter stiff. A penny is dear, catastrophe is dearer. On the way home, the city seems rearranged, though every brick is familiar. The railway runs faster. The stations have clocks in duplicate. A reading room has opened 2 streets over, cheap newspapers, cheaper chairs, and a rule about washing hands before touching the periodicals. You try it once. The boy at the desk watches you trace the columns with a finger you pretend isn't shaking. The paper says the Trade Union Act of 1871 recognised unions at last, as if your years of whispers have been tidied into a sentence and filed. You stand up straighter for a few steps afterward, then remember to bend again before the bell can notice. The quirks of the body pile up like offcuts. Bread tastes sweeter, or not at all. Knees click like cheap latches on cold mornings. Your hearing is a sieve that keeps the thunder and lets the words pass through. You've learned to read mouths better than letters. Careful, faster, again. Sometimes at night you feel the ghost of the shuttle pass your cheek and you flinch in the dark. You laugh at yourself, but gently. One evening, the apprentice who calls you uncle walks you to the bridge. He speaks in that bright way that pretends not to fear the future. He says there's talk of a motor that doesn't need belts. That power will come in wires and every machine will have its own heart. He says the owner will be fair. He says work will be lighter. He says so many things the newspapers taught him. You let him say them. Hope is a tool too. Sometimes it fits, sometimes it slips, but the hand needs something to hold. Did you ever want to run? He asks suddenly. You think of the day the strike didn't stat happen, of the treacle tin, of the hill where windows shine like coins you can stat spend. You think of the river lighting blue for a second, when gas meets air. You tell him the truth you can manage. I wanted to eat. Back in your room, the damp in the wall has drawn a map in the plaster. You follow its rivers with a fingertip, naming places you've never been, places that exist as long as your finger moves. The candle sputters and recovers. Its flame makes a soft sound, the hush of a moth's wing. You rub oil into your palms, an old habit that doesn't help but comforts. The smell is your whole lifetime, bottled. From the street below comes the jingle of a muffin man, his cry thin, brave, absurd in the hour. You smile despite yourself. A cat walks the ridge tile, paws silent, tail an elegant question mark against the sky. Far off, the new electric glare blinks off with a thud, and the gas mantles hold the city in their honeyed hands a little longer. Historians will later measure these years in production figures and parliamentary acts, and some will argue, kindly convincingly, that life did improve, that wages rose by inches, that roofs leaked less, that boots lasted longer. Others will lay the ledgers beside graveyard lists and cough counts and call that improvement a word with too many shadows. The truth lives in your joints and in the way you cherish a quiet Sunday more fiercely than any sermon. You blow out the candle and listen. The factory's hum lingers, like a tide beyond a wall. The river turns in its sleep. Somewhere a clock mouths time instead of biting it. You imagine Dalton in his shop, winding a spring with fingers that never forgot the loom's music. Your own hands rest on the blanket, worn and honourable, as if they finally accept what they've made and what they couldn't. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It helps keep these long journeys alive. Now let the lamps dim in your mind. Let the gas hush to a glow, and the hard white of the dynamo fade to a memory you don't have to stand under. Your breath becomes the gentlest machine you know, steady, warm, faithful. The bell is far away. The river is only water again. You are here, in the soft room of now, and the years set down their weight beside the bed, just for a while. Morning does not come with a bell anymore. The whistle that once shook the river no longer sounds. The mill stands quiet, its windows boarded, its doors chained, its chimneys cold as tombstones. The silence feels heavier than the noise ever did. It settles in layers, on the bricks, on the cobblestones, on your skin. It's strange how the absence of sound can still ring in the ears. You wake before dawn, as always. Habit is a form of inheritance. The body remembers long after the world forgets. For a while you lie still, waiting for the machine's hum that never arrives. Your room is the same, cracked plaster, a chair with one leg shorter than the rest, a kettle that leaks from the spout, yet everything feels unfamiliar without the rhythm that used to fill it. The mill closed 2 months ago. They say the work went south, to new machines, cheaper labour, brighter skies. The men who owned it sold the bricks to a firm from Leeds. They'll tear it down soon. Progress again, the word that never rests. Outside, Manchester breathes differently now. The air is clearer, but the silence bites. You walk to the bridge anyway, the same one where you used to pause and watch the river smoke. The Irwell is thinner these days, its surface calmer, but the water is still the colour of a bruise. Steam no longer drifts above it. The reflection shows more sky than ever, a sky that looks almost blue when the wind is right. You lean against the railing, the stone cold under your palms. Below, the current carries scraps. A plank, a bottle, a rag of cloth. The city's heartbeat has slowed, but it hasn't stopped. You hear carts rattling from the markets, voices echoing down the lanes. The noise is smaller, human-sized, not the roar of the old age, but the murmur of what follows. Some say it's better now. The new mills are cleaner, safer, less cruel. The newspapers print photographs, bright rooms, smiling workers, electric light like bottled day. But photographs can't smell. They don't show the heat, or the taste of oil in the back of the throat, or the way a man flinches at silence because it sounds too much like loss. You find your way to the factory yard. The gates hang open. Rust eats the hinges. Weeds creep through the cracks where boots once marched. The air inside is still, the kind of stillness that listens. Shafts of sunlight pierce the roof's holes, catching dust that dances like it remembers music. The machines are gone. What remains are ghosts of weight. Grease stains on the floor, chains that clink when the wind finds them, handprints fossilized in soot. You walk the length of the hall. The boards creak under you, surprised to be heard again. Your shadow stretches thin across the floor where hundreds once moved as one. The silence presses harder the deeper you go, until your own breath sounds foreign. You stop where your loom used to stand. There's only a mark now, a clean rectangle amid the grime. You kneel and touch it. The wood is cool, almost kind. A pigeon coos from the rafters. Light glints off a nail. Somewhere beyond the walls, a train whistles, faint and long. Not the factory's command, but a traveller's farewell. The sound catches something in your chest. The world keeps moving. You wonder if it remembers who taught it to. The younger ones left first. Arthur years ago to Liverpool docks. The apprentice who called you uncle found work at an electric works in Salford, where the hours are short and the air smells of copper instead of coal. They send letters sometimes. Folded sheets that smell faintly of optimism. You keep them in a tin box under your bed, beside the candle stub he once gave you. The paper yellows, but the words stay. You step outside. The afternoon sun cuts through the haze, striking the mill's windows and scattering shards of light onto the river. The reflection quivers. Pieces of sky floating on dark water. You can see yourself in them, bent and pale, eyes rimmed with the soot of memory. Across the river, they've built a park, small, fenced, green, in a way the city hasn't been for decades. Children run where barges once moored, their shouts sharp and clean. Mothers watch from benches, faces open to the light. You stand for a long time, unable to move, unsure if this sight fills you with peace or something harder. Maybe both. A boy runs up to the bridge, chasing a paper hoop. His laughter bounces off the stone. For a second you see Arthur at his age, barefoot, sweeping the floor. The image flickers, doubles, and then fades with the boy's laughter. The world always finds new children for its promises. You walk on, past the row of houses where the plaster peels like old wallpaper, past the pub with its new name, the Dynamo Arms. Inside, men in clean shirts talk about factories run by motors, not steam. The air smells of soap, not soot. You think of joining them, then keep walking. Conversation requires a kind of strength you've already spent. At the corner stands the church, its stone scrubbed pale, its bell long since repaired. You push the door open. The space feels smaller than you remember, or maybe you've just carried too much air from outside. The same cold draft curls around your feet, the same candle scent, the same hymns in your head even when the pews are empty. You sit where you always did. Dust rises like incense around your knees. On the wall, a plaque lists names of the faithful lost to cholera, to fire, to collapse. You trace a finger along the dates. They blur together 1847, 1853, 1866, years that sound like the heartbeat of a machine. You half expect to find your own there, but it's too soon. You laugh quietly. The sound's small but real. Outside, the city exhales again. The wind carries a smell you barely recognize at first, rain on clean stone. It's not sweet, not rich, but it's honest. It smells like something ending without breaking. You walk home slower than ever, your boots marking paths through puddles that reflect the sky, not smoke. Your room greets you with its usual quiet. You light a candle, its small flame steady as breath. The match flares with that old hiss, the same sound that once filled the mill's lungs, now shrunk to something you can hold. The glow spreads across the walls, touching each crack like a memory counted one last time. You sit by the window. The chimneys across the street stand black and still against the dim sky. Beyond them, faint and far, a single factory still runs, a hum carried on the wind, not loud enough to disturb, just enough to remind. You imagine the hands there, the faces, the new generation stepping into the rhythm you left behind. They will have different songs, different clocks, but the same breath, always the same breath. You let your head rest against the window frame. The glass is cool. The candle burns lower, its flame bending toward the wick. Shadows rise behind it, soft and long. You close your eyes, and for a moment you hear the past, not loud, not cruel, but distant, like a tide turning back. Steam hissing, looms clattering, voices shouting through the haze, all fading into something tender, like rain receding down a roof. If anyone were to ask what the industrial age gave you, you wouldn't know what to answer. It gave you life, in a sense, work, bread, survival. It also took the same things away. Perhaps that's what progress means, to trade the body for the idea of a brighter world. You are proud of what you built. Even if it forgot your name, you forgive it too. That's how you rest. If you enjoy these stories, a like or a subscription means more than you think. It helps keep these long journeys alive. Now let the mill grow quiet inside your mind. Let the steam disperse and the iron cool. The river flows slower now, the air cleaner, the city breathing without smoke. You are safe here, in the silence after steam, where the machines sleep and the years soften. Let your breath match theirs, long, low, at peace. The age fades behind you, but its hum stays gentle, like a lullaby whispered through time. End of script. Sweet dreams.